All right. All right. Just so you all know, I am recording this. I will stop it after the presentation itself, just so I want you to feel comfortable that none of the questions will be on the recording. But thanks for joining us today. I think this is the time of the year for seniors where you have received most of your financial aid award letters, award packages, sometimes they're called. And I know it can bring up a lot of questions. And so hopefully you'll come away from this presentation and have a little bit of a better idea of how you can sort it all out. You know, how you can look at your different financial aid awards from the schools that you've been accepted to and really know what that bottom line cost is going to be to you. So these award letters come in various ways. So you may have actually received a physical paper mailed award letter. You may have received an email that said it's now available in their student portal. So with it being April 7th, you should have an award letter from every school. So if you don't, now is the time to really contact that financial aid office and ask them, you know, what's the holdup, or where is it that maybe you're just not seeing it. All right, so what I just took is an actual financial aid award letter from a few years ago from Southern Illinois University. They all look a little different, but I think you'll be able to find the sections that we're going to talk about pretty consistently on all your different letters. So this is just what the full picture looks like. And then I'm breaking it down by the sections. So on most of them, or all of them, you will see something called the cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance includes not only tuition and fees, room and board, but also all those extras. You know, the assumption is that in order for you to attend a college, you are actually the cost to you are actually above and beyond the room and board and the tuition and all those things that are billed for you. And so there are things that are called the direct costs that make up part of the cost of attendance, but also indirect costs. So those direct costs are ones that are actually going to be billed to you. So you will get a bill for tuition and fees, room and board. If you're living on campus, you will get those generally, if you're on semesters, you'll get those bills twice a year. The first one, unfortunately, comes out to you over the summer before you've even started. And so probably in about July, you will get a bill for the first semester, cost of attendance, room and board, all of that. But we also know that there are those things like books. They won't show up on your bill, but you're going to have to come up with money to pay for those books. Transportation is often something that's factored into the cost of attendance because the college knows that you need to get to and from campus, if not only initially, but throughout the semester during breaks or whatever. So transportation is factored into that. And then there are some of those other miscellaneous kinds of fees or ways that you're going to need to spend money. For instance, spending money, right now you are going to the mall, you're going out to eat. If you're living in residential housing on campus, you do have a cafeteria and you often have a meal plan, but a lot of times they're closed on Sunday nights. So Sunday night's a big pizza night or going out night. So the assumption is you need some extra spending money to be able to pay for all of those indirect costs. But those indirect costs also are very much controllable on your part. So those are simply estimates. If you're more frugal, you can definitely bring those costs down. For instance, books and supplies being $1,100 on this one. If you go to the bookstore on campus, a textbook could be a couple $100, a brand new textbook. But you will learn really quickly that you can often get them online for cheaper, get used ones. Maybe even your college has a textbook rental, which definitely can bring the cost down on that. And I think it's also really important to to put together a budget for yourself so that you're not like the first time, if you're living on campus, it's the first time you're like free, I can do whatever I want. You don't want your spending money to run out before you're even done with the semester. So while you need to, think about it and factor it in, know that you're not going to be billed it, and know that those expenses are controllable. All right, so then you'll see a section that is generally called grants, or grants and scholarships lumped together. So grants and scholarships, you do not have to repay. And so you might see the breakdown of both grants that will come directly from the school. Colleges are able to dole out their own money, and so they may have their own funds. Typically, private schools have more of these, their own grants that they can give out. So you may see a university grant, but you also may see a Pell Grant, or when it says here, this grants from your state. In the state of Illinois, our main grant is called the MAP grant, the MAP grant. So based on your FAFSA, for students who show the most financial need, there's allocations for federal Pell Grant or state MAP grant. So you may see that in that section. Also, please know that, your financial aid award letter, award package is redone every year, and it's based on that FAFSA. So if it looks really good right now, but next year you win the lottery, or let's say there's a change in status and financial status for your family, this can be affected. So you want to kind of keep that in mind. And then, of course, scholarships would show up here, scholarships that are from the college itself. So again, if we kind of look at the full breakdown, what we've already looked at, we looked at the full cost of attendance, we looked at the grants and scholarships, and then basically there's a calculation of a net cost. So basically taking the full cost minus the money that they're going to give you is what's left behind. I usually recommend that you take out these indirect costs, at least initially. You keep in the back of your mind, you're going to need, a couple $3,000 a year in order to have that spending money. But when you want to compare apples with apples, as far as college A, college B, college C, because those indirect costs can differ, I think it's probably a better idea to just kind of put those aside and just look at tuition, fees, room and board as your billable costs. Take away from that the grants and scholarships, and then come up with this net cost figure. And I like to do it this way before you start figuring out any loans. And so we were just looking at what the cost is, what they're going to give me, and what's left behind. All right, so when you think about what you're going to need to make up for that amount that's left behind, that you still have to come up with, there's different ways that you may see on this financial aid package that will help you with that. So one of the things is called work study. And so work study is actually a federal program where the federal government pays money to the university to allow students to be able to get a job on campus, get paid for working, and use that money towards paying off for their tuition fees, room and board, all of that. You would, on your FAFSA, you would have had to have checked the box, first of all, to say, do you even want to be considered for work study? If you said yes, and if your FAFSA showed enough financial need, you may have been offered this work study. Being offered it doesn't mean you have to take it. So that's why I always recommend when you do the FAFSA, check that box. If they offer you work study and you're like, no, I really don't want to get a job my first year or whatever, absolutely you can decline it. But all they're saying here is that they kind of have this $2,680 set aside to be able to have you get a job and pay you for that job. And then that money actually goes directly to you. It does not get subtracted off of your bill or anything. It actually gets paid directly to you. So you can use it, of course, to pay off your bill, but you also could use it for some of those indirect costs. So maybe your work study is what you're going to use to, buy that pizza on a Sunday night or whatever. So if you have work study, again, it's not automatically like they're going to give you a job. It's that you're eligible to get a job. So you'll have to be looking at emails as far as when they open up some of the jobs on campus. Definitely are jobs that are, I don't want to say better than others, but that may work better with your schedule than others. For instance, you could scan IDs in your dorm that, maybe at the front desk, you can be working there. Oftentimes you can be doing homework when you're not busy scanning IDs, or at the rec center. You can work in the cafeteria. And a lot of times if you are working, let's say you're working breakfast 4 days a week, at that time that you're working in the cafeteria, oftentimes you get a free meal. So you might be able to then get a lower meal plan. Instead of getting 21 meals a week, you might be able to just buy 14 meals a week because you're going to get those breakfasts provided for you. Then you've got some loan options usually listed. Every student has the option of getting from the federal government, part of this federal Stafford loan program, you're able to get about $5,500 in loans the first year. It goes up a little bit every year, but it never is enough to totally cover if you needed to have a significant gap in how much the school's giving you and what you need to make up. It's usually pretty minimal. So these are loans that are actually taken out in your name. They are student loans, so there's no need for a parent to co-sign on these loans. It's on you. Definitely think about it before you take out loans. But I also think there is, when you think about an investment in your future, there are consumer smart kinds of ways to go about choosing whether or not to take loans. And then there are ones that are kind of reckless. If you're thinking about, like, it's my dream school, I want to be there, it's worth it to me to take out a lot in loans, think twice, because I want to tell you a little bit about how these loans work and how the repayment works for them. So first, let's talk a little bit about the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized. And so if you have no financial need whatsoever, you will be offered $5,500 in unsubsidized loans. The subsidized means that with any loan, there always is interest that accrues. The current interest rate for these Stafford loans, I believe, was 2.75%, which is pretty low. The rate varies every year. And so if you decide you want to take out a loan, let's say you take out let's say $5,000 in an unsubsidized loan, there would be some interest, at 2.75% interest accruing during the year. You're not paying on that loan at all, but it's being just added to that initial $5,000 that you took out. So in the case of an subsidized loan, the government is going to pay that 2.75% interest while you're in school. So let's say you took out $5,000 a year for 4 years. You graduate with $20,000 in debt. If it was all subsidized, you would start paying off on a $20,000 loan. If it was unsubsidized, you might be paying off on $22,000. That extra interest has been kind of added into the principal on the loan. Typically, loans, you start paying back loans 6 months after you graduate. And so they allow you to get on your feet, get a job, start making some money before you have to start paying back those loans. A typical repayment schedule for these loans would be 10 years. So let's say you get your 4-year degree and you're 22 years old, you'll be paying off those loans from age 22 to about age 32. Just to give you an example of, on that $20,000 loan, you took out $5,000 a year at about the 2.75%. Your payment on that is about $220 per month. So you can see that will be pretty manageable. $200 a month is probably going to work for you if you're working full time. Even if it's not a real high paying job, that probably is manageable for you. But if you start taking out double that, or quadruple that. Can you imagine if your student loan payment is $1,000 a month? It's going to really keep you from doing a lot of the things that you want to be doing in your 20s. You're finally earning money. You want to go on vacations. You want to move out of the house, maybe buy that first car. So really think about the amount of loans that you're going to have to take out. So then even after that amount of loans that you can take out, there still might be a gap. And so the question is, how do I come up with that? So oftentimes your parents, guardians are able to help contribute to that. Sometimes you will see in your financial aid package this parent or plus loan in there. This can be pretty deceiving because it almost looks like if you see the breakdown and you see like how much they're giving you in grants and how much they're giving you in scholarships, and then they give you this big chunk of a plus loan and then it comes down to zero. Keep in mind that this is a loan. This is not free money. And so this is something that it is on the parents, expected for the parents to take that out, pay that back. And so really look at that, have a conversation with your parent or guardian as far as whether this is the best option, or, sometimes parents will go out and get loans through private means, through like Discover or Sallie Mae, or through some of those companies that offer loans for education privately. All right, so this is just that worksheet that Ms. Brill put in the chat, kind of a way for you to list out a couple of your schools. You can make multiple copies of this and kind of see them side by side. So go on those financial aid awards, plug in the direct costs for each of your colleges, the total cost of attendance, and then start looking at those award letters and plugging in, what did you get as far as grants, scholarships? How much is that total? How much is remaining after adding what it costs to what you're going to get? Then start looking at the loans that they're offering you. I think it's important to do this because each financial aid package looks a little different. And so you want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and that you know the full amount or the full impact of that before you make any decision. All right, so that was a lot of